guys, this is Miss Brittany, and if you missed our information in class, I wanted to bring it back to you for our skeleton labeling parts. So we're going to start with this right here. This is what we call a skull in our terms, but for science purposes, we call this a cranium. In the front of the cranium, the top jaw right here that has your top teeth, that's called the maxilla. That's the maxilla. The bottom jaw just fell off. That controls your talking and your eating and all that. That's called your mandible. Mandible. So we have cranium, maxilla, and mandible. Next, we're going to go over here to Mr. Bones. And these bones right here on both sides support him and hold all of his internal organs in place and protect them. This is called your rib cage. Both sides together equal the rib cage. Next, in the center of the rib cage is this little strip right here. We sometimes call it a breastbone, but the official term for it is sternum. Sternum for this middle part. Then there's a bone on either side right here. A little closer. This bone on either side, we sometimes call it a collarbone, but it's actually officially called the clavicle. Clavicle. Now here's our arm. This part right here is equivalent to my upper arm, and this is the elbow. So when you hit your elbow, it may not be funny, but it's awful humorous. Humorous. So this is the humerus. The arm, the lower arm, looks like this. Those are the two bones. They rotate back and forth. So the lower arm has two bones in it. There's one that goes to the thumb, and there's one that goes to the pinky. The one that goes to the thumb is called the radius, and the one that goes to the pinky is called the ulna. So we have the radius to the thumb and the ulna to the pinky. Then we're going to bring the hand in here. So the wrist bones right here, those are called carpals. Carpals for the wrist bones. And then the part that comes up from the wrist bones up here, those are the metacarpals. So we have carpals, metacarpals. Then when you get to up to the ends of the fingers, all these little tips, those are called the phalanges. Phalanges. So carpals, metacarpals, phalanges. Turn Mr. Bones around here. So from his skull all the way down to his tailbone, we call this section the spine. Sometimes doctors also call it the vertebral column. Vertebral column. Spine is fine for class, so spine. Each individual piece of the spine is made up of its own bone. There's 26 bones altogether, and these are called vertebrae. Each one is its own vertebrae. When you get down to the end of the vertebrae, you have this little section right here, this part right here, and that's called the sacrum. The sacrum, it's kind of a little curvature right there. And the end of the sacrum, we sometimes call it a tailbone, but it's actually called the coccyx. It's spelled weird, C-O-C-C-Y-X. Coccyx. Okay. Around. Now, these two bones right here are your hip bones, and they come together to make one big bone, separated by just cartilage in the center. So this right here, we call them our hips unofficially, but what we're going to call it officially is our pelvis. And boys and girls' pelvises are shaped a little different. So if you were an archaeologist and you were digging up old bodies that had been buried long ago, you would be able to look at the pelvis and determine if it's a boy or a girl based on the shape. Girls' pelvises come forward a little bit more to hold the baby in, and boys' pelvises are more straight up and down because they don't need to hold the baby. So that's pelvis. Let's go down here. This bone right here, this is about like his leg, like this part of his leg, his thigh bone. This is called a femur. That's the femur. At the end of his femur, this right here, we call it a kneecap or a patella. Patella is the official term for it. Then we go down here to his lower leg. And on his lower leg, we have a big bone that's shaped like a T. And then we have a smaller bone, a little bone. So the little bone, this little bone, is called the fibula. It has an L in it because it's little, fibula, little bone. The bigger bone is called the tibia. There's no L in it, tibia, big T for tall. So big T, tibia, fibula, little bone. Okay. Now in the foot, we have a couple of different bones in here. So in your ankle, so that we can see it a little better. In your ankle, we have these little ankle bones right in here, and those ankle bones are called tarsals. And then those lead to the next part of the bones, metatarsals, and the tips of the toes are called phalanges, just the same as fingers. So fingers are called, the ends of your fingers are called phalanges, ends of your toes are called phalanges. So phalanges, phalanges. So we have in your hand, carpals that are in your wrist, metacarpals, and phalanges. Then you have tarsals, metatarsals, and phalanges. So they're kind of similar. And last, we have this heel bone right here. It's a big, strong heel bone. We call this the calcaneus. Calcaneus. Okay? So that is everybody, all the bones that you need to know on Mr. Bones. Oh, I missed one. On the back side, this big flat plate right here, it's kind of shaped like a spatula, kind of flat. We call it a shoulder blade, but the official name for this is a scapula. A scapula. Okay? And that should have all of our bone names. So if you want to practice that for the exam, go back through that list, and hopefully that'll help you. All right, see you later.